Cole Branson had always been known as the cowboy who kept to himself. People in town would wave at him, say hello, or ask about the weather, but no one really expected him to stay for a long conversation. He was a man who preferred silence over noise, work over company, and memories over new experiences. Anyone who watched him quietly riding across his ranch at sunrise could see that he carried a weight on his shoulders that he never talked about. Years ago, Cole had been a different man. He laughed easily, he shared stories, and he believed that life could be beautiful if you held on to the right things. He once planned to build a future with someone he loved deeply, a future filled with hope, warmth, and family. But life took an unexpected turn, and that bright dream slipped away from him faster than he could hold on to it. The loss had cut him so deeply that he made himself a promise he repeated every time he felt even a small spark of emotion rising in his chest. He would never love again. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't believe his heart could survive another break. The ranch where he lived was wide and lonely, but he preferred it that way. The rolling fields, the sound of horses in the distance, and the gentle wind moving through the grass were enough for him. Every morning he woke before the sun rose. He fed the horses, checked the fences, repaired anything that needed fixing, and moved through his chores with the same steady rhythm he had practiced for years. Work was simple. Work didn't ask for anything from him emotionally. Work didn't open old wounds. Even the small things about his life were reminders of the past. The old wooden chair on the porch, the faded blanket in the living room, the photo he kept inside a drawer but never looked at anymore, all of them held memories he could not erase. Sometimes, when the nights grew too quiet, he would feel those memories pressing at the edges of his mind, but he always pushed them away. It was easier to keep going than to stop and feel. People in town understood enough to leave him alone. They weren't unkind. They simply knew he needed space. Some would say, "Cole's got a good heart, but it's locked up somewhere." Others would say, "He's been through more than most folks. Let him be." And Cole appreciated that unspoken understanding. He didn't want anyone trying to fix him. He didn't believe he could be fixed. His horse, Dusty, seemed to be the only companion he truly trusted. Dusty was calm, loyal, and familiar. When Cole rode across his land, Dusty moved like he understood the quiet mood his rider always carried. Sometimes Cole would stop at the old oak tree near the edge of his property and sit beneath it for a while. The tree had been there longer than his family's ranch, its branches spreading wide like arms ready to shelter anyone who needed it. Cole sat there for peace, not comfort. Peace was simple. Comfort was dangerous. One particular morning, the sky turned soft shades of pink and orange as Cole stepped outside. He inhaled the cool air, grateful for another predictable day. Predictable days were the safest kind. Nothing unexpected, nothing emotional, nothing that would force him to remember the life he once had. He saddled Dusty and rode toward the far end of the ranch, where a fence had been damaged in the last storm. He planned to repair it before noon, then check on the cattle, then finish up in the workshop before evening. The more he planned, the less he had to feel. But even on the safest days, life had a strange way of surprising him. As Cole worked on the fence, he heard the faint sound of a car engine in the distance. Cars rarely came down that road unless they were lost or headed somewhere else. He glanced up, expecting the sound to fade away. Instead, it grew louder. Dusty lifted his head as the car slowly approached and stopped a short distance away from the fence line. Cole wiped his hands on his jeans and watched as the driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. She looked tired, as if she had been traveling for hours. Her clothes were dusty from the road, and her hair was slightly messy from the long drive. But her eyes held a gentle expression, the kind that came from someone who wasn't there to cause trouble. She glanced around, trying to make sense of where she had ended up. Cole wasn't used to visitors, especially strangers. For a moment, he considered staying silent and letting her figure things out on her own, but his natural sense of responsibility nudged him forward. He walked toward her slowly, Dusty following behind. "You lost?" he asked in a calm, even voice. The woman let out a small breath of relief, as if just seeing another human face made her feel safer. "I think so," she admitted. "My car started making strange sounds, and then it just stopped. I'm not sure where I am." Cole nodded. "You're near Branson Ranch. Town's about 12 miles that way." He pointed down the long dirt road she had come from. She stared in that direction, then looked back at him with a helpless expression. 12 miles? She repeated softly. "I don't think my car's moving another 12 feet. Cole could have sent her back toward town to wait for someone else to help. He could have said he was busy and walked away. After all, helping strangers wasn't part of his routine. But something about her honest worry touched a part of him he had tried to bury. He didn't understand why, but he felt the quiet push to offer help. "I can take a look at your car," he said. Her shoulders relaxed a little. "Thank you, I really appreciate it. My name's Emma, by the way." Cole nodded once. He didn't offer his name immediately, but after a moment he added, "Cole?" Emma smiled, a small, tired smile that felt surprisingly genuine. "Nice to meet you, Cole." Cole examined the car and quickly saw that it wouldn't be going anywhere without proper repairs. "You'll need a mechanic," he said. "I can call one, but it might take a while for them to get out here." "Oh," Emma looked worried again. "Is there anywhere nearby I could wait?" Cole hesitated. He didn't like letting people into his space. But he also wasn't the kind of man who left someone stranded on a road with no shade and no protection. After a long moment, he sighed quietly. "You can wait at the ranch," he said. "It's not far. I'll give the mechanic a call." Emma's face brightened with relief. "Thank you so much. I didn't expect to run into anyone out here." Cole didn't respond to that. In truth, he didn't expect to run into anyone either. And he certainly didn't expect a stranger to step into the quiet world he guarded so carefully. As he led her toward his home, he couldn't shake the strange feeling settling in his chest. This wasn't part of his predictable day. This wasn't part of his safe routine. He didn't know who Emma was, why she was traveling, or what she carried in her heart. But for the first time in a long time, something unplanned had entered his life. And although Cole didn't realize it yet, this small moment, this simple act of helping a tired stranger, was about to slowly change everything he believed about his future, his heart, and the promise he once made to himself. Emma followed Cole toward the ranch house, walking slowly to match his steady steps. She tried not to look too tired. But the long drive and sudden breakdown had drained her energy more than she expected. The moment she stepped past the open gate, she felt a strange sense of calm. The ranch stretched wide across the land with soft, rolling fields, a wooden barn, and a small house that looked warm and lived in. Even the air seemed different here, cleaner, quieter. Cole walked a few steps ahead, but he glanced back occasionally to make sure she was keeping up. He didn't say much, but Emma didn't mind. There was something comforting about his quiet nature. It wasn't cold or rude. It felt like he simply didn't want to speak unless he had something meaningful to say. When they reached the porch, Cole opened the door and stepped aside. "You can wait in here while I call the mechanic," he said. Emma stepped inside and looked around. The living room was simple but tidy. A few photos hung on the wall, though she noticed one empty space where a frame had clearly been removed. A soft blanket rested on the couch, and boots sat neatly by the door. The place felt like someone lived here with routine, not chaos. "This is really kind of you," she said gently. Cole nodded. "You can sit wherever you like." He walked across the room to use the old landline phone on the counter. Emma listened quietly as he explained the situation to the mechanic in town. His voice stayed calm, polite, and steady, like someone used to solving problems without fuss. When he hung up, he turned to her. "He'll come out later today," Cole said. "Might take some hours. Depends on how busy he is." Emma nodded. "That's fine. I didn't really have a strict schedule today anyway." Cole wasn't sure what to do next. He wasn't used to having guests, especially not strangers. But he felt responsible for her, at least until help arrived. "Can I get you water or something to eat?" he asked, though he sounded unsure if that was the right thing to offer. Emma's smile was small but warm. "Water would be great. Thank you." Cole poured her a glass and she sat on the couch. For a moment, there was a quietness between them. Not uncomfortable, just new. Emma watched Cole move around the kitchen with a calm, careful manner. Everything he did felt deliberate, as if he had learned to navigate life slowly and with caution. "You live alone?" she asked softly. Cole paused for a second before answering. "Yeah, it's just me." Emma nodded. She didn't push for more information. She could feel, even from their short time together, that Cole was someone who guarded his past. But she also sensed that he wasn't unfriendly. He just carried something heavy inside him, something he didn't let anyone see. "You've got a beautiful place here," she said, looking out the window at the open land. Cole glanced outside. "It's peaceful." "It really is," Emma agreed. "I've been traveling for a few weeks now, and I haven't felt this kind of quiet in a long time." "You traveling for work?" Cole asked, curious in a cautious way. Emma shook her head. "No, I just needed a break from everything." Cole didn't ask what everything meant. People usually didn't take long road trips for no reason, but he figured she would tell him if she wanted to. He never liked when people asked him questions he wasn't ready to answer, so he didn't want to make her feel the same. After a moment, Emma added, "Life has been a lot lately. I just needed space to breathe." Cole understood more than she realized. Space to breathe. He had been living in that space for years. He nodded once and said, "Sometimes distance helps." Emma looked at him, sensing the truth behind his words. She didn't know his story, but she felt he wasn't speaking from theory. He was speaking from experience. Cole seemed unsure of what to do with the silence that followed, so he said, "If you want, I can show you around the ranch while we wait. Better than sitting inside all day." Emma brightened. "I'd like that." Cole led her outside, and the two walked toward the barn. The warm sun touched the fields, and a gentle breeze moved through the tall grass. Emma breathed deeply, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. "This place feels like its own world," she said. "It is, mostly," Cole replied. "Not many people come through here." Emma smiled. "Except travelers with broken cars." Cole let out a small breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Yeah, except them." Inside the barn, Dusty the horse lifted his head and stepped closer, curious about the visitor. Emma hesitated, unsure if she should approach. "He's friendly," Cole said. Emma slowly reached out and placed her hand on the horse's neck. "Hi," she whispered. Dusty seemed to like her instantly. Cole watched the moment quietly, surprised by how naturally she interacted with the animal. "You good with horses?" Cole asked. "Not really," she admitted, "but I grew up around animals. I think they understand kindness better than people sometimes." Cole nodded again, and she noticed he did that when he agreed with something deeply, but didn't want to say too much. They walked further into the barn, and Emma noticed the care Cole put into everything he owned. The tools were neatly arranged, the saddles cleaned, and the spaces clear. It wasn't perfection, it was discipline. Someone who lived with purpose, even if that purpose was sometimes just to stay busy. "This place must take a lot of work," she said. "Work keeps the ranch alive," Cole replied, And it keeps me going, too. Emma understood. Keeping busy was sometimes the only way to keep pain from rising. As they walked back toward the house, Emma asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" Cole didn't answer right away. He wasn't used to people asking him such direct questions, especially strangers, but her voice wasn't judgmental. It was gentle, like she truly wanted to understand. "Sometimes," he finally said, "but I'm used to it." Emma nodded slowly. Being used to something doesn't always make it good. Cole didn't respond, but the words stayed with him. They reached the porch again, and Emma sat on the steps. Cole stood nearby, hands in his pockets, looking out over the field. The silence between them felt different now, not empty, but connected. "You know," Emma said quietly, "I didn't expect to meet anyone today, and I definitely didn't expect someone to help me like this." Cole shrugged lightly. "It's the right thing to do." Emma looked at him for a long moment. "I think you're kinder than you allow yourself to believe." Cole didn't know how to respond to that. No one had spoken to him that way in a long time, and he felt something inside him shift just a little, something he wasn't prepared for. The sun moved slowly across the sky, and time passed without either of them noticing. It was strange how natural their quiet moments felt, like two people who didn't need to fill the stillness with conversation. Emma felt safe here, even though she didn't know much about the man standing beside her. And Cole, without realizing it, had let someone step gently into the quiet corners of his life, something he never thought he would allow again. The morning after Emma arrived, the ranch felt unusually calm. A soft golden light spread across the fields, touching the grass and turning it into a warm sea of color. Cole stepped out of the house just as the sky shifted from pale pink to bright orange. He had been awake for hours as he always was, but today felt different. He couldn't explain why, but he had sensed something shifting inside him, something he wasn't completely ready to face. Emma had slept in the small guest room at the end of the hallway. It was a simple space with a wooden bed and a single window, but she slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. When she woke up, she stretched with a soft smile, surprised at how rested she felt. She didn't know what the day would bring, but she knew she felt safe here, in a way she hadn't felt anywhere else during her travels. When she stepped outside, Cole was already working in the barn. She walked toward him slowly, enjoying the warm morning air. Cole didn't hear her approach at first. He was checking his old cowboy gear, things he hadn't touched in a long time. The worn leather belt, the saddle he once used for long rides, and the holster that held the tool he carried for work around the ranch. These items reminded him of the man he used to be, before life changed him. Emma approached the barn door and paused for a moment, watching him from a distance. There was something calm and steady about the way he moved, even though she sensed a quiet sadness within him. She finally stepped inside. "Morning," she said gently. Cole glanced over his shoulder. "Morning." He didn't smile, but his voice held a softness that she hadn't heard the day before. Emma walked closer, looking around at the tools, saddles, and ropes. Dusty the horse nudged her with his nose as if greeting her again. "You start your day early," Emma said. "Every day," Cole replied. "Ranch doesn't wait." Emma watched him adjust the saddle and brush the dust off the old leather. She noticed the holster hanging from the side of the work table, holding the item he always carried whenever he worked far from the house. It wasn't unusual on a ranch, but something about it felt symbolic to Emma. Not dangerous, just personal. Something he kept close because it was part of his routine, his protection, his world. She took a step closer, curious about the cowboy gear he seemed to treat with a strange mix of care and distance. Cole noticed her gaze and froze. He never let anyone get close to his things, not because they were valuable, but because they carried memories he didn't want to reopen. Emma reached the table and slowly lifted her hand, resting it on the handle of the holstered item without fully realizing what she was doing. It was a simple, quiet movement, gentle and innocent, but the moment her fingers touched it, Cole stiffened slightly. He wasn't frightened. He wasn't angry. He was simply caught off guard. Emma looked up at him, noticing how still he had become. "Sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I was just curious about your gear." Cole swallowed, feeling something unexpected rise in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was vulnerability. That small, simple touch had crossed a line he didn't know he had drawn around himself. "It's fine," he said quietly. "Most people don't go near it." Emma kept her hand where it was for a moment longer, not holding it tightly. Not grabbing, just resting gently. Her touch wasn't intrusive. It felt like a small gesture of trust, like she was reaching into a part of his life he had kept shut off for years. She then slowly placed her other hand on his arm, her gesture kind and reassuring. "I wasn't trying to cross any boundary," she said. "I just wanted to understand your world a little." Cole stood still, surprised by the soft warmth of her touch. No one had touched him like that in a long, long time. Gentle, careful, respectful. It wasn't the object she was touching that shook him. It was the fact that she had stepped into a space he had protected for years, and for the first time, he didn't want to pull away. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, his voice softer than before. Emma smiled slightly and slowly lifted her hand from the holster. Cole took a breath he hadn't realized he had been holding. His chest felt tight, but not in a painful way. It felt alive, and that scared him. Emma stepped back just a little, giving him space without fully leaving his side. "You carry a lot," she said gently. "Not just with your hands. Here." She tapped lightly at her chest. Cole's gaze met hers, and for the briefest moment he felt exposed. She saw him, not the quiet, distant cowboy he presented to the world, but the man beneath the silence. He didn't understand how she managed to see what he'd worked so hard to hide. "I manage," Cole said, though his voice didn't have the same certainty it used to. Emma didn't challenge him. Instead, she sat on a bale of hay and watched as he returned to his work. He moved slowly at first, trying to steady himself after that unexpected moment. His hands worked on the saddle, but his thoughts weren't on the leather. They were on the way her hand had felt, warm, gentle, full of trust. "So," Emma said, breaking the silence, "when was the last time you used any of this cowboy gear?" Cole hesitated. "Been a while." "Why?" she asked softly. He took a long breath. "It reminds me of things I try not to remember." Emma waited, hoping he might share more. She didn't push him. She simply sat there quietly. After a moment, Cole surprised himself by continuing. "I used to ride a lot," he said. "Long trips, competitions, trails. I wasn't always alone out here." Emma listened carefully, noticing the way his voice softened when he spoke of the past. "But then?" she asked gently. Cole shook his head. "Then life changed." He didn't say more. But Emma could feel the pain in those simple words. She nodded, signaling that she wasn't expecting him to explain if he wasn't ready. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the things we keep close, they're not just tools or memories. They're pieces of who we used to be." Cole looked at her quietly. She wasn't trying to take anything from him. She wasn't trying to fix him. She was simply offering a bridge, one he didn't know he needed. Dusty nudged Cole's shoulder as if sensing the tension in the air. Cole petted the horse, grateful for the familiar comfort. Emma stood up and walked toward Cole again, but this time she stopped a respectful distance away. "You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share," she said softly. "But I want you to know you're not alone in carrying things that hurt." Her words settled gently over him. And for a moment, Cole felt something shift inside his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something far quieter but just as powerful. It was trust. He didn't know how long Emma would stay. He didn't know why fate had brought her to his ranch. But he knew one thing for certain. The moment she rested her hand on his guarded world, something started to change inside him. Something he thought was lost forever began to stir again, like the first spark of warmth after a long winter. And even though Cole didn't want to admit it, he was no longer sure he could keep the promise he had made to himself so long ago. The next few days passed in a way neither Cole nor Emma expected. What should have been a simple wait for the mechanic slowly turned into something gentler, quieter, and strangely comforting. The old ranch, which had always felt empty and silent, now carried a soft energy, like the air itself shifted just a little each time Emma walked through it. Cole tried to keep his routine the same. He woke early, fed the horses, checked the fences, and worked through the long list of chores that usually kept his mind focused. But now he found himself listening for Emma's footsteps. He didn't understand why. He wasn't looking for conversation, and he wasn't trying to impress her. It was something simpler, something he tried not to think about. Her presence, without trying, made the ranch feel less lonely. Emma, on her side, didn't know how to explain the feeling growing within her either. She didn't come here for company. She didn't come here for connection. But Cole's quiet strength, his thoughtful silence, and the way he watched the world with calm eyes made her feel grounded. She felt like she could breathe here in a way she hadn't breathed in months. One afternoon, they worked together fixing a wooden gate near the cattle pen. Emma helped where she could, mostly handing Cole tools and watching his careful movements. The sun sat high in the sky, warm but not harsh. Cole wiped sweat from his brow and glanced over at Emma, who was kneeling in the grass tying a stray piece of rope. "You don't have to help," he said. Emma looked up at him with a soft smile. "I want to. Besides, you've done enough for me already." Cole didn't respond to that. He wasn't used to people helping him. He worked alone so long that he forgot what it felt like to share even small tasks with someone. But watching Emma's determination, even though she wasn't used to ranch work, made something inside him soften. When the gate was fixed, they sat on a large rock beneath a tree, drinking cold water. The breeze rustled through the leaves, and Dusty grazed nearby. Emma sighed with contentment. "It's peaceful here, like the world moves slower." "It does," Cole said. "Ranch life is simple." "Simple sounds perfect right now," Emma whispered, looking out toward the open field. Cole studied her carefully. She looked tired, but not the same kind of tired she had been on the day she arrived. This was a tiredness slowly healing, unwinding. "You said you needed a break," Cole said, "from everything." Emma nodded slowly. "I did." She paused, searching for words. "I've been trying to figure out what my future looks like. I lost a lot recently, things I thought were permanent." Cole listened quietly. He wasn't good with comforting words, but he knew how loss felt. Emma didn't say more, and he didn't push her. Instead, he said softly, "Sometimes starting over is the hardest part." Emma looked at him, surprised by how deeply he understood with so few words. "You talk like someone who knows." Cole didn't answer immediately. He turned his gaze to the horizon, his jaw tightening with memories he didn't like to revisit. "I do," he said finally. Emma waited, hoping he might share more. She didn't want to pry, but she wanted to understand him, not his chores, not his silence, but the man underneath it all. "What happened, Cole?" she asked gently. He didn't look at her. He didn't speak. The silence stretched between them. Not heavy, but tender, like a wound he was afraid to uncover. "I lost someone," he finally said. "Someone who mattered. Someone I didn't think I could live without." Emma's expression softened. "I'm so sorry." Cole nodded. "I made myself a promise. No more letting anyone close. No more trusting feelings that don't last." Emma listened quietly. She saw the truth in his eyes, the pain, the caution, the wall he had built around his heart. "But things don't always stay broken," she said softly. Cole finally turned his head and looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "Some things don't mend the way people think." Emma didn't argue. She simply reached out and touched his arm softly, the same gentle way she had in the barn days earlier. Her touch didn't ask anything of him, it didn't push for more. It simply offered presence, warmth, understanding. Cole felt something shift inside him again. He didn't pull away, he didn't freeze, he just let the moment exist. They sat there under the tree for a long time, watching the land stretch out before them. Emma leaned back slightly on her hands, enjoying the breeze. Cole sat beside her, lost in thought, feeling a strange sense of peace that surprised him. Later that day, clouds began to gather in the sky. The temperature cooled and the wind picked up. A storm was coming, and Cole knew it. He had lived long enough on the ranch to read weather patterns like a book. "We should head inside," he said. Emma nodded and followed him back to the house. As they stepped onto the porch, the first drops of rain fell. Within minutes, the storm rolled in fully. Loud rain, occasional thunder, and wind shaking the trees. Inside the house, it felt warm and sheltered. Emma stood by the window, watching the rain hit the ground in steady sheets. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Cole watched her more than he watched the storm. Her eyes reflected the gray light from outside. She looked peaceful, thoughtful. Something about her presence felt natural in his home, even though she had only been here for a short time. Without looking away from the window, Emma said, "Can I ask you something?" Cole leaned against the door frame. "You can. When you lost that person, did it make you stop believing in good things?" Cole took a slow breath. "For a while, yes." "And now?" she asked gently. He looked at her, and the room felt strangely quiet despite the storm outside. "I don't know," he admitted. Emma turned fully toward him. The soft light framed her features, and he saw honesty in her eyes, an honesty he didn't expect from someone he barely knew a week ago. "You help people," Emma said softly, "even strangers. Even when it hurts you to care." Cole's chest tightened at her words. "You're not closed off the way you think," she added. "You're just careful. And careful doesn't mean you stop believing." Cole looked away for a moment, unsure how to process the feelings rising inside him. Emma stepped closer, her voice still gentle. "You don't have to let anyone in if you're not ready, but don't lie to yourself about your heart. It's still there. It still feels." Cole swallowed, the truth sitting heavy but strangely comforting. He didn't say anything back, but Emma could see something inside him shifting again, slowly, quietly, like old ice beginning to melt after a long winter. The storm outside eased into a soft rain. Emma walked toward the kitchen to pour herself a cup of warm tea. Cole watched her move through his home, comfortable in a place he once guarded with silence. The ranch didn't feel empty today. It didn't feel lonely. Something was changing. Something he didn't expect. Something he wasn't sure he could stop, even if he tried. And the truth was, for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he wanted to. Cole stood at the gate of his ranch. The same old wooden gate he had passed through 1,000 times in his life, yet today it felt different. The morning sun stretched over the open fields, painting everything in warm gold. The horses moved slowly in the distance, and the breeze carried the scent of dry grass. It was a peaceful day, but inside Cole, there was a storm he could not hide. He had not felt something like this in many years, and he was not even sure how to name it. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was hope, maybe it was both at the same time, but all he knew was that Emma was leaving soon, and a part of him was not ready for that. Emma stood by her car, checking her bag one last time. The mechanic had finally repaired everything, and now there was nothing stopping her from continuing her journey. She tried to smile, but Cole could see the sadness behind it. She had grown comfortable on the ranch, and he knew she would miss the quiet days, the slow evenings, and maybe even his stubborn nature. He had watched her grow calmer, stronger, more confident with each passing day. And she had watched him change too, though he still struggled to admit it. Cole walked toward her slowly, his boots making soft sounds on the dirt path. He wanted to say a lot, but he had never been good with words. His strength was in his silence, in his actions, in the small things he did for people he cared about. But this moment needed words. He understood that clearly. He had spent so long hiding behind walls that he had almost forgotten how to express what he felt. But if he stayed silent now, he knew he might lose something precious. Emma looked up when he stopped in front of her. There was a calm softness in her eyes that always made him feel seen. She gave him a gentle smile. It wasn't a cheerful one, but it was real, the kind that came from the heart. Cole took a deep breath and lowered his gaze for a moment before lifting it again. "You're really leaving," he said quietly. Emma nodded. "I have to. My journey isn't over yet." Cole knew she was right. She had her own life, her own goals, and her own story. She had not come here to stay forever. She had simply passed through like a soft breeze that cooled the hottest part of summer. But her presence had changed something inside him, and now he stood there, wishing he had more time. "I understand," Cole said, though the words felt heavy. He tried to smile, but it wasn't easy. His chest felt tight, like he was trying to breathe through a thick fog. Emma closed her bag and stepped toward him. "Thank you for everything," she said. "You helped me more than you know." Cole shook his head lightly. "You helped me more." Emma seemed surprised. Cole didn't usually speak openly, so when he did, people paid attention. She waited for him to continue. "I didn't expect someone to walk into my life like you did," Cole said. His voice was low but steady. "I didn't think I'd ever open up again. I didn't think I could." Emma listened quietly, her eyes never leaving his face. "You reminded me that the world still has good moments," he said. "That a person can heal even if they thought their heart stopped working long ago." Emma took a slow breath. Her eyes softened. She knew how much courage it took him to say all this. Cole was the kind of man who carried his feelings deep inside and locked them away. For him to express himself like this meant the world. But even after speaking, Cole still looked unsure. His hands were resting at his sides, but his fingers curled slightly, like he was afraid of what might happen next. He didn't want to hold her back, but he couldn't stop himself from wanting to try. Emma stepped closer, close enough that Cole could feel the warmth of her presence. She gently reached for his hand, the same way she had placed her hand on his holstered gun weeks ago. The same soft, trusting touch. A touch that said she meant no harm. A touch that had broken through his walls the first time, and now was unlocking something even deeper. Cole looked down at their hands, and then back at her. She didn't have to speak. Her touch said enough. "I don't want you to go," he finally whispered. Emma's lips parted slightly, and she held his hand tighter. She looked at him with warmth and kindness, not rushing him, not forcing anything. She wanted him to say what he truly felt, in his own way. Cole took a breath and continued. "I know it sounds selfish, I know you have your own life, but if there's even a small chance, even a little one, I'd like you to stay, or at least come back." Emma looked down for a moment, thinking. She wasn't surprised by his words, but they still touched her deeply. She had grown close to him too, more than she expected when she first arrived here. She had seen his pain, his strength, his quiet kindness. She had watched him open up little by little, like a frozen river finally melting under the sun. "I want to stay," she said softly, "but I don't want you to ask me out of fear." Cole felt his heartbeat slow. Her words were gentle, but honest. "I'm asking," he said, "because I don't want to lose something good again. Not this time, not you." Emma looked up again, and this time, her smile was warm and full. She stepped even closer and rested her head lightly against his chest. Cole froze for a moment out of surprise, but then he relaxed and gently wrapped his arms around her. It felt natural, like something he had been waiting to do but didn't know how to start. They stood like that for a long moment, letting the quiet morning wrap around them. The horses moved softly in the distance, and the wind hummed across the open land. Everything felt calm, and for the first time in many years, Cole felt a sense of peace he thought he had lost forever. Emma pulled back slightly but kept holding his hand. She looked up with a warm smile. "I'll stay for now," she said, "and we'll see where the road leads." Cole nodded. That was enough for him. He didn't need promises or big plans. He just needed a chance. And now he had one. Together, they walked back toward the house. The morning sun shined brighter, almost as if the world itself was celebrating this quiet beginning. There was nothing dramatic, nothing loud, nothing rushed. Just two people walking side by side, letting life guide them gently. Cole felt lighter than he had in years. He had broken the promise he once made to himself, the promise to never love again. But breaking it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt right. It felt freeing. It felt like choosing life again. Emma's hand stayed in his, warm and steady, as if silently saying she wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. And as they walked forward, Cole finally understood something important. Sometimes the heart heals in small steps, not giant leaps. Sometimes love returns quietly, with gentle gestures and soft moments. And sometimes, all it takes is one person placing their hand on a guarded part of your life to remind you that you are still capable of feeling deeply. Cole smiled to himself, and for the first time, he welcomed the future with an open heart.